Hello everyone, welcome back to Vedic Enigma. So in today's video, we will be talking about another interesting topic. And I have already made a video on this one. So this is on how and where will you meet your future spouse, like future husband, future wife. But that one was in Hindi, so this one is going to be in English. And I'm also be showing you example charts that I had used in the previous one also. But these charts will be shown on screen because some of the people were having difficulty understanding and comprehending the technique. So I will be showing the charts in this video. And through that, we will be discussing about the place and, the theme and how exactly you will meet your future spouse. So, but before we start this video, I would really appreciate if you like, comment, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. It will really mean a lot to me. So, as I had already discussed about this, that when it comes to finding the place or the way in which you will meet your future spouse, many people just give importance to the seventh lord. They see where the seventh lord is placed, in which house it is sitting, and they feel okay related to that house. In that house, you will find the spouse. So I have tested out this technique on many charts, and I have seen it not working on a lot of charts. So sometimes it does work and it shows that, okay, like if seventh lord is in the fourth house, they met, through some family home arrangement setup. But in a lot of cases, it does not work. And then I was testing out this technique on Venus and, to see that where Venus is placed and seeing the seventh house from Venus and where its lord is placed. So that seems to be giving more accurate results in terms of knowing the place, the way in which, two people meet. Because Venus, as we know, it is the karaka of relationships, it's the karaka of marriage, and any kind of marriage also starts with a relationship. So it is showing that the place where you will meet and where there are high chances that through that mechanism you will meet your future spouse. So the technique is very simple. You have to basically look at Venus, where Venus is placed in your chart, which house that becomes, and you also have to note the seventh house from Venus. So, for example, if your Venus is in the sign of Gemini, for example, so seventh from Gemini will become the sign of Sagittarius. So, firstly, you have to see where Venus like is placed, like in which house it is placed, and seventh from that house, like seventh from Venus, if Jupiter is placed in which houses, and if Jupiter is becoming stronger. So whichever planet, like between Venus and the seventh from Venus, whichever is becoming stronger, you have to note that planet, like where that planet is going, with which planets it is getting conjunct, in which house it is going. So that will kind of show you where, in which situation you will meet your future spouse. But in case your Venus is becoming stronger, as compared to the seventh lord from Venus, then you have to look at Venus. And you also have to look at the conjunctions of Venus. So that will give you a good picture of, the way in which you will meet. And this is really interesting because now I will be showing you two charts. So they are celebrity charts, and I prefer using these charts because we know their life is already there in the public domain. We know how they met. They have already told and disclosed about this in various interviews. So it is much easier to kind of, know about this thing. So let me share the charts with you now. So as you can see that this is the first chart, and this chart belongs to the famous actor Shah Rukh Khan. And we can see that he's a Leo ascendant, and Venus is placed in the fifth house. And seventh from Venus, we have Jupiter placed there in the sign of Gemini. And we can see the lord of the seventh from Venus, which is Mercury. It is in the fourth house with Mars and Ketu. So, firstly, from the very first data point, we can see that Venus is placed in this 5-11 axis. So, this axis becomes, and we have the dispositor of Venus also looking at Venus. So, which is making this house even more stronger. So, there is a very high probability, very high chance that this person can meet their future spouse in a very friendly kind of a setting, because fifth house is the house of entertainment. It's a house of, like where you're enjoying life. It's a house of pleasure. So, and 11th house also, if you look at it, is the house of your network, like it's a house of your friends. So this is the kind of theme that we are basically getting. So this is the first step. But now we also have to look at whether we need to take Venus or whether we need to take seventh lord from Venus, which is Mercury. So we see that Venus is in the fifth house. It is well placed, and dispositor is also looking at it, making it stronger. And we see that the seventh from Venus, which is Mercury, in fact, it is with two malefics in the fourth house in an inimical sign. So that is why we will not be considering Mercury over here. So we will not take this, and we will only focus on Venus. So it shows that through the fifth house, and fifth house is naturally the house of relationships, also it's the house of love, romance, and it's a house of clubs, and this is the kind of way in which you will meet. And we know that fifth house also is a house of knowledge, education, and all is also seen from the fifth house. So when Shah Rukh Khan was in college, when he kind of met, uh, uh, I think he was in school or he was in college, around that time he met his wife, Gauri Khan, and Gauri Khan was in school. So there was definitely an element of education, schooling involved. Now we also see that this is a sign of Sagittarius, which is naturally ruled by Jupiter, and Jupiter also represents education and knowledge and all those things. And then we also see fifth house. So he met her at a friend's party, so it was like a get together kind of a thing. And it was, where people are there for pleasure and having fun. So in that kind of an environment, in a friendly kind of an environment, you will meet. So we can tell and decipher a lot from this. And if we look at the seventh lord over here, so seventh lord we see is Saturn, and Saturn is very strong, and it's in the Multrikon sign of Aquarius. So if you see the seventh house, seventh lord, it should show more of like work related themes, that you will meet your spouse in a work kind of a setting, but that is not at all true. So that is how I've seen that so many times the seventh lord, seventh house thing does not work. It is more important to look at Venus and seventh from Venus. So that becomes a very crucial point to know. Then we come to the second chart. So this is the chart of Virat Kohli, a famous cricketer. And he met his spouse, wife, Anushka Sharma. So that was during this ad campaign, for a shampoo ad. So again, like work related stuff. So we see Venus over here again. Venus is in the 10th house and it is with Moon. Okay, and Moon is the eighth lord over here. And we see seventh from Venus. Seventh from Venus is the sign of Pisces. And we see that Jupiter is placed in the sixth house. Okay, and the dispositor of this planet is also in the 10th house. So we see that in this case, it is actually very clear cut, because whether you look at Venus, which is already placed in the 10th house, but here Venus is debilitated, but it is having a niche Bhang Raj Yoga is happening with Venus, but it is debilitated still. And then we see that the seventh from, Venus is the sign of Jupiter, like it's the sign of Pisces, and its lord is Jupiter, and it is in the sixth house. So sixth house, 10th house, both are kind of in this chart coming to the same conclusion, that it is some work related stuff, because sixth house represents your routine, your work life. And we see work from the sixth house also, and 10th house is also the actual, like the workplace. So it shows that in some professional setting, it is happening. And I also mentioned this thing about, the meeting, their meeting, because this was something which he kind of, told in the interview. So I think you also have to look at, how people are describing, the way they met, because that also has a lot of clues to the actual, like, you will find a lot of linkage with the chart. So we see over here that Venus is in the sign of Virgo, and it is in a parivartan with Mercury. So there is a Venus-Mercury exchange that is happening. So Venus is under the influence of Mercury for sure. And Moon is also a very like soft planet, emotional kind of a planet, and very like sudden energy also is coming over here, because it's the eighth lord. So eighth lord is getting conjunct Venus. And we also see that when Mercury is involved in any way with Venus, so there are elements of humor, there are elements of pranks, and like some flirtatious stuff also happening. So that is the kind of thing Mercury brings, to Venus. So when they met, he kind of made a joke, and he made like some fun, during their conversation, and he kind of jokingly told Anushka Sharma that you didn't get any higher heels, like to wear, because of like she's already very tall and she was wearing heels. So there was kind of like a joke that was, that happened in the first meeting itself. So that is why I'm taking here the first meeting, and it is showing the, context, what happened. So all those kind of things also you can see. So it is very interesting to see, because over here we saw that how Shah Rukh Khan, met Gauri Khan, and it was during the time that both of them were studying, and there was like that Jupiter theme related stuff here. Sagittarius is there, so it's more like knowledge related. And here we can see that it's very work oriented, work related. And again, over here, if we try looking at the seventh lord, okay, like the seventh lord is Mercury, like it's Gemini sign, and Mercury is placed in the 11th house with Sun. And so this should tell you that okay, you will meet the person in some social, through your social friends, through your mutual friends, and in your network circle. But this did not happen. It did not happen like that. So that is why in both the charts we see that just by looking at seventh lord, we are not able to get that true picture of the meeting, the theme, the place, and how they will meet. So I hope that this, gets some clarity, like people are able to understand it more clearly now, because in the previous video, there were no charts. And definitely, I also feel that if there are charts involved, then you kind of have a better sense of, and you better understand the concept. So now we will be talking about all the different houses, like all the 12 houses, and we will be talking about how, if you have Venus placed in the first house, or if the seventh lord from Venus is placed in the first house. So in what context, in what will be the theme, or in which you will meet your future spouse. And again, like over here, before I get to that part, it is really important to see the conjunctions also, and the sign also. So because the sign conjunctions will also make a lot of difference here. And if you don't pay attention to that, it will give you a better context, like in Shah Rukh Khan's chart, we saw how Jupiter has a very strong role to play over there, because Venus is situated in the sign of Sagittarius and Jupiter is aspecting it also. So we cannot completely ignore the signs also. And even in, for example, we see in Virat Kohli's chart, it was an ad campaign and it was for a shampoo. So, it is for something which, like, it is like a liquid. It's a shampoo and it's used for cleaning. So you see that shampoo is used for cleaning your hair, and it is in the sign of Virgo. Virgo is also associated with cleaning and with cleanliness. And you see that it is conjunct Moon, which is a liquid. Moon represents liquids, Moon represents water. So it could even mean that you could meet your spouse maybe near a water body, okay, or near a pond or something like that, or a swimming pool, for example. So it is like you can, make a lot of like these things in your mind about the placement, about the planet conjunction, but it really depends on the depth in which you know about the planets and what they represent, about the signs. So I'm saying that it is very accurate and it can get to that level of accuracy also, provided we are able to understand the context and how things are happening, and we pay close attention to people's words also. So that is also very important. So let's start with the first house now. So if suppose you have Venus placed in the first house, or seventh lord from Venus, if that planet is stronger, okay, then you will consider that planet, seventh lord from Venus, is in the first house. So what does it show? So first house, as we know, represents our own self, like it is your own personality, and it has everything to do with your life. So firstly, it shows that you yourself will have a lot of role and prominence in the relationship, and there will be a lot of like you will be very independent with respect to taking marriage decisions. Like you will not be under the force of any other person, and you yourself will be accountable, and you yourself will decide that. So it can definitely indicate a love marriage in that context. Like it is one of the combinations, because it's showing that you have full control over the kind of person that you want in your life. Secondly, it also shows that because Aries sign is involved in the first house, and Aries is a Martian sign, it has a lot to do with initiative, responsibility. So you will take a lot of responsibility in the relationship and towards approaching the other person also. So it might so happen that you are approaching the person, like, they are not approaching, but you are taking that initiative. And it can also show that it is somewhere like the person is very near and very close to you, so it is happening in your vicinity area only. It is not something where the person is in some other country altogether, or in some other city. So wherever you are going, whatever like work routine you have, or the college you're going, so the person is also very near, very close to you. And it also indicates that with Aries sign, we see that has a lot to do with efforts. It is a very hardworking sign. So it shows that in relationships also such an individual will put in a lot of effort and a lot of initiative will go from their end.
Recording in progress.
And we also see that when we talk about the first house, it has a lot to do with, it's related to your health. So there is a very high probability that you can meet the person where, like in a gym, or like a fitness center, or a place where it has a lot to do with health and rejuvenation, because Aries sign is very strongly connected to these things also. And along with this, it can also indicate that you meet the person at a place where, a place of grooming, like for example, a spa or a salon where, you are going to get a facial done or something like that, because these are all the elements that are connected with the first house and with the sign of Aries. So when I'm talking about the house, I'm also taking into consideration the sign, because if we see the Kalpurush Kundli, then we see that the Aries sign comes in the first house. So it has a lot of flavor, like the first house has a lot of flavor of the Aries sign also. So these are like some of the places where, you can expect, to meet your future spouse in what context. But it also shows that the conversation itself, it's very upfront, it's very direct. That is a kind of theme. Like there is no family involvement over here. There are no like friends or like, some mutuals who are involved in the entire process. And you yourself are taking a lot of initiative. Like it's a very solo kind of a game that is happening over here. Like maybe you just go on, a dating app only with this scene and you kind of, you are taking that initiative to send the request to some girl or to some guy, and then it happens like that. So it definitely would show that the element of Aries sign will definitely come into the picture. Let's move to the second. Let's talk about the second house now and how do you study this. So suppose you have your Venus placed in the second house, and suppose that the Venus is actually very strong. It is placed in the sign of Taurus, Libra, it's exalted, or the dispositor of Venus is very well placed in the chart. Then you will definitely look at the Venus placement. Like you will definitely consider the second house. But suppose you have your Venus placed in any other houses, and the seventh Lord from Venus is situated in the second house, and that planet is strong and powerful, then you will consider that, okay, second house is a place where you can meet. And in that context, you can expect to, first time meet the spouse. So second house, as we know, represents mainly like our family, and it also represents food. It's a house of wealth. So what are the places that, come to our mind when we think about the second house? So one is that in some family context, you can, meet your families introducing your spouse to you, or you could meet them at a cafe, like at a restaurant where there is food, or you can meet them at a place which is connected with banking or some financial institution, because second house also represents wealth. So these are the kind of like top three, four places that, come to my mind when I think about the second house. And but mainly, I would say that it is mainly the house of family. So it is showing that family involvement will definitely be there. Or even if you don't meet through family, but there will be a lot of influence of the family on your relationship, like on the marriage, on the relationship with the spouse. So it also indicates that. But again, like I said, that you have to look at the conjunctions also of Venus over here. Suppose Venus is strong in the second house, but if it is suppose situated with Rahu and Moon, like suppose we imagine that Venus Rahu Moon conjunction is there and it is in the sign of Pisces, for example. So Venus is strong, but it can indicate in this case that you meet the person at a cafe or a restaurant that is not in your city. Maybe you have traveled to some other city or some other country, and there you are meeting the person at a cafe. So it can very well indicate that, because Rahu represents foreign things, Moon represents travel, Moon also represents food, and second house is also very strongly connected with food. So I'm saying that the planets, the conjunction aspects will also give a different flavor, like slightly different flavor. But the major theme will be around those things only, which are very strongly represented by the second house. So this is how we need to analyze the context, see the situation and what exactly is happening in that. And the sign in which Venus is placed also becomes quite important, because the sign will show you the flavor, like it will show you certain elements of that meeting. So sign also becomes important. So I will definitely make another video on the signs also, how do we study that. But in this video, we will be focusing on the houses only. Then coming to the next house, which is the third house. So suppose you have your Venus placed in the third house. or wherever your Venus is placed, the seventh lord from your Venus is very strongly connected with the third house. So then you can consider this house to be the place where you can meet your future husband, future wife. And the context will be of the meeting will be set by this house. So how can we decide and judge this? So suppose Venus is exalted, it is very strong, it is in its own sign, and the dispositor of Venus is very well placed, and we can say that Venus is much more stronger. So in that case, you should definitely consider Venus's position. But suppose you see that the seventh lord from Venus is it can be any planet, but if that planet is very well placed, it is very strong, then and if that planet is connected with the third house, then it shows that okay, through that planet you will meet the person in the context of the third house. So third house, as we know, it is the house of Mercury, and the very first thing that it represents is traveling, communication. So traveling becomes a very important theme. So you can like expect to meet the person at a time where you are maybe in the flight, or you're in a train, you meet the person there in a bus. So that kind of context can be there. Or you have to travel to some other city to meet the person. So it can indicate that the person is living in some other place. It can also show that you can meet them through your family, friends, or relatives, cousins, neighbors, So these kind of people can also be playing a part in the meeting, or through them you are meeting this person. And it also indicates that third house also represents our hobbies, our interests. So maybe you go to a place to pursue your hobby. Like it could be, for example, a dancing class. It could be like a creative, like some art class, so or a pottery class. So in that kind of a setting, you meet this person. So it can even indicate something like that. But again, it shows that in the context in the meeting, there will be a lot of focus will be there on the communication, on the expression. Like you will immediately feel that, oh, you have really bonded well over your communication, over how you're able to click and gel well with each other. That will be the main theme of the meeting. Like, for example, in second house, it can indicate that the main theme on which you can gel could be related to family values, could be related to wealth, could be related to food also in some way. So, but in third house context, it shows that the main thing that is really clicking you is that you can very easily express, whatever you feel like, and there is no filter to what you are, saying. So, something like that would be the major theme around which, or maybe you go in the first meeting, you go and explore an adventurous hobby together. You go to a place where maybe there is some like river rafting, or some rock climbing, something like that, in which context you decided to like take the first meeting, like in that context. So that is the kind of environment theme in which you can expect to meet. But again, like I said in the previous parts also, you have to see the conjunctions also. Now suppose Venus is very well placed in the third house, but it has a lot of planets influencing it, or a lot of planets are sitting with Venus, then again the theme and the context will slightly differ a bit. So that flavor will change a bit, but the main theme will still be of the third house. So that is how you have to judge and assess this. Coming to the next house, which is the fourth house. So suppose you have your Venus placed in the fourth house, or suppose if your Venus is placed anywhere in the chart, but the seventh lord from that Venus placement is strongly connected with the fourth house, then we can expect that, okay, you will meet the person in the fourth house context. And by strongly placed, I mean, like, suppose Venus is exalted, Venus is in its own sign, like Taurus, Libra, or suppose the dispositor of Venus is very well placed, or dispositor is exalted, then you should definitely consider Venus placement only. So between the seventh lord from Venus and between Venus, you have to decide which one is actually becoming the stronger planet, and which planet is then connected to which house. So that house will give the results then. So fourth house, as we know, it is firstly the house of your homeland. It represents your mother. It represents your anything connected, like your society, colony, the place where you are staying. So that all comes under the fourth house. And we know that fourth house naturally is ruled by the sign of Cancer, which is a watery sign. So it also represents watery places, like it could be like a lake, or like some water body, river, something like that. Even some hotels and all can also come under the fourth house. But it mainly represents a very homely kind of a place. And also schools come under fourth house. So maybe you can expect to meet the person at a time when you were in the same school together, or you can be from the same school. Or you meet the person through your mother, like mother is involved. or you meet them at their home, like at their place. So that home environment is there, or in the kitchen. Okay, because kitchen where food is cooked and all, or the drawing room. So that those all places also come under the fourth house. Or you could even meet like near a swimming pool. So something like that can also happen. So this is the context, like this is the environment in which you are meeting the person. And definitely it can show that the mother's involvement will be there in the relationship, or maybe through the mother only you met the person. So something like that also you can expect, is expected to be seen. But it definitely more so focuses on the arranged marriage setup, because fourth house is definitely, fourth and even second house are very strongly connected with arranged marriages, because family has a lot of influence and role to play in this regard. But it shows that if suppose you have Venus in the fourth house, and or the seventh from Venus is very strongly linked with the fourth house. So the theme on which you are connecting, like, in that context, it is based on emotions. Like you will say that you felt an emotional connect with a person, you felt that the other person is understanding you emotionally, or you could bond very well with them. So that is like the how you feel with, that person. So you will focus a lot on that, and the entire meeting will be focused on that, and you will feel very comfortable and very like much at peace with the person. So that is the context, that is how you're feeling, and that is the like the vibe of the first meeting. And the places already have mentioned that it can be like a very but it will be a place where there is a lot of calmness, there is a lot of like, it's a quiet place, it's not a very hustle bustle kind of an environment in which you are meeting. So even if it can be a cafe also where there is food served, because it is strongly connected with moon, but it will be a very quiet cafe. It will be a place where you can talk nicely with the other person. So that is the kind of environment, the setup in which you will be meeting. So coming to the next house, which is the fifth house. So suppose your Venus is placed in the fifth house, or wherever Venus is placed in the chart, the seventh lord from Venus is connected with the fifth house, then what can we expect? So firstly, we have to see like if Venus is strong, like in the fifth house. Like I gave example of Shah Rukh Khan, his Venus was actually strong because dispositor Jupiter is looking at Venus. So it is making Venus strong. And we also see that fifth house. So if suppose your Venus is actually strong, then you will definitely consider the fifth house. But suppose you feel like seventh lord from, suppose Venus is placed anywhere in the chart, but the seventh lord from Venus is becoming very strongly connected with the fifth house, and it's strong with respect to the fifth house, then we can expect to say that, okay, fifth house related themes will become prominent in the first meeting, and that is the way you will meet the person. So like in example of Shah Rukh Khan's chart also, I mentioned that his Venus is strong in the fifth house, because seventh from Venus is not strong, right? Because seventh from Venus is going in an enemical sign with malefic planets. So Venus is stronger because dispositor Jupiter is looking at it. So Venus can become strong in different ways. Like it can be maybe situated in sign of Taurus, in the sign of Libra, or in the dispositor is becoming strong. So then you have to look at the fifth house only in that case, where Venus is naturally placed. So fifth house, as we know, represents, it's a very fun-loving, pleasure-related kind of a house. And even things like, for example, going to clubs. So you can expect to meet the person at an entertainment kind of a place, like maybe watching a movie together, going to a club, or even where there are people and you are socializing. So that kind of a setting can also be seen from the fifth house. But it mainly shows a place where you have gone there to enjoy yourself, and it's a very light-hearted kind of an environment in which you are meeting, but definitely does not show family intervention so much. Like it does not show that your like family is involved in the meeting, but it can even be through some dating app. It can even be through some way in which like maybe at a time when you were in college, so it can even show something like that, because fifth house represents your undergraduate education also. So that is something that can be seen. So this is the kind of context that will be there. But it definitely shows that a Venus is in the fifth house and fifth house is becoming prominent. Then in the first meeting, there is a lot of like romance that is involved. There's a lot of pleasure, like focus is there on the pleasure aspect a lot. So that is the way by which two people connect. Like in third house, I gave the example of communication. Like communication is the major theme of the relationship and the way in which you meet, and that is on which you are bonding together. But in fifth house, it shows that you are bonding because you are very attracted towards each other, and there is a lot of pleasure seeking behavior that is involved in the relationship. And it can even indicate some past life linkage or past life connection. Like you meet the person and you immediately feel like you know them so well, as if you are connected to them, through some past life. So something like that, because fifth house is the house of past life. So something like that can also be seen with the fifth house. But it is mainly showing that there is a lot of fun that is involved in the relationship. It's a good kind of a, like, it's a fun loving kind of a relationship that you will have with your, the meeting will be like that. It will be very light-hearted, and there is no kind of a pressure that is there. And it also indicates that through the meeting, like it shows that there will be a lot of like positivity and optimism that will come out of it. Like towards the end of the relationship, you will feel like the relationship has kind of transformed you and has made you into a better individual. And there are good things that you see, like maybe earlier you were a bit pessimistic towards a few things in life, and the person came in your life, and the way in which you are looking at things has kind of changed, and it has made you a better individual, or has changed the way in which you view the negative situations also. So you have become more positive overall, optimistic overall, and it really broadens the way in which you look at things now. So that is also seen through Venus in the fifth house. Coming to the next house, so next house we see that is the sixth house. So if you suppose your Venus is placed in the sixth house, or wherever your Venus is placed, the seventh lord from that house is strongly connected with the sixth house. So it can indicate that sixth house related themes become very prominent, and that is the way in which you will meet. In that context, you will meet. So sixth house, as we know, is very firstly strongly connected with health and fitness, because even like small clinics, and because it is the house that represents diseases in general. So you can meet the person at a place where maybe there are a lot of pets, like there are a lot of dogs, animals involved, like small animals, or a veterinary clinic, or it can be like a normal general clinic where people are coming for their diagnosis. So something like that. Or it can even represent places like courtrooms. So where, because it represents conflicts, disputes, and all. So even like courtrooms and court places. And it can even show places where which are very strongly connected with healing of any sort. So, like there are these rejuvenation centers or Ayurvedic centers, so something like that also can be indicated through this. But with sixth house, like if sixth house has that context, and Venus is in the sixth house, it also shows that maybe when you first meet the person, you are not immediately, like there is not an immediate attraction towards the person. Maybe there are a few things that in the first meeting you kind of disagree on, or there is some kind of repulsion that could be there, or you maybe like have this thing like you have a very different perception of the person. Like when sometimes you meet the person for the first time and you don't like them at all, but eventually you get to know them and you realize, okay, the person is not like this and that. So in the first meeting, very first meeting, it can indicate that there is some slight hatred, or there is some slight enmity that comes into the picture. There is a repulsion that comes into the picture with the person. So why is this happening actually? Because sixth house energy, if you see, it has the energy of conflicts. It is a very competitive kind of a house. It is not a very sweet kind of a house. So that is the energy, that is a vibe of the house. So that is why in the meeting, also in the first meeting in that context, that vibe will definitely come of that house. The flavor will definitely come. Yes, if the sign is, the kind of sign in which it is placed, the planets that are conjunct Venus will make a lot of difference otherwise, but the basic theme will be the same. It can even show that there could be some theme where you're helping the person, like, there is some service that you have given to the person. So there is some exchange of that, then that is how you met. So this can be, through some way by which maybe you met somebody and they asked for your help, and you kind of gave them some financial help, or through some like some service you gave them. So something like that can also be seen. So either that, or it can involve some kind of an enmity or some kind of a repulsion in the first meeting, and or maybe a difference of opinion, like difference of viewpoints. You feel like a lot of times things are not matching up, like you are not feeling like you're on the same page. You might have very different viewpoints on certain things, the other person has very different viewpoints, but still eventually you kind of came to a conclusion and you met, and you realize that okay, there are also commonalities that are there. But that is the overall environment in which you can meet. And sixth house and the sign of Virgo also, if you see, it also represents places which are connected with gardens and botanical stuff like trees and plants and all these things. So it can even indicate that in that kind of an environment you meet the person, or you meet them where there is like at a medical shop also, some, so where there are medicines like pharmacy and all. So something connected with that, like that kind of a theme will definitely be there. Or something connected with animals also, it can indicate. Or even an NGO, or like some place where there is social service that is done for other people. So those kind of themes and patterns will become very prominent in the first meeting in that context. Coming to the next house, which is the seventh house. So if suppose your Venus is placed in the seventh house, and or suppose wherever Venus is placed in the chart, seventh lord from Venus is connected very strongly with the seventh house and it's strong, then you can say that okay, seventh house related themes will become very prominent. Now, for this to happen, Venus also needs to be strong. Like if suppose Venus is very weak, in a sign, and in the even if though it's in the seventh house, but it's very weak and it's debilitated, and the dispositor is also not well placed, then you should maybe consider the seventh lord from Venus and not Venus itself. But if Venus is actually strong, dispositor is well placed, it's looking at its own house, then you can consider the seventh house for evaluation. So seventh house represents the marketplace, like it is a sign of Libra. So it represents a place where there are a lot of people. So the environment in which you are meeting it can be a marketplace also. It can be like a shopping mall. It can be a place where there are weddings, like, you can meet the person at a wedding. So it is a social gathering kind of a place because it is not a place which is operating in isolation. Or it can even show that you meet at a time where there is a lot of socializing that is happening in your life also. Like, there is a time where you're actually meeting so many people, like every day or like every week you are, going somewhere doing that. So that also indicates that the seventh house energy would be quite activated in your chart. And we also see that seventh house is exactly opposite, like total opposite of the first house. So when this kind of a situation is there, position is there, it can even indicate that the person is coming from a place which is exactly opposite to you. So they can maybe live in some other country altogether, or they are not maybe in the same vicinity, like they don't live there. Like, so you're not meeting them on a daily basis, but it's just like a chance encounter that you met them at a wedding or something like that. So it in seventh house in some cases can also represent courtrooms and court places where there is a lot of negotiation or debate discussion that happens. Some mediation kind of a thing is happening, or even it can represent a business setup. Like where some business deals are getting closed. So in that kind of a context, also you can expect to meet a person. But it definitely shows that the first meeting, like, the theme, if we look at it, it is very well, it is a kind of like a balanced situation. It's a very because that is how the sign of Libra operates. So it is not a situation where you would be kind of thinking a lot about, the person, or has or judging a lot about the person. So it's a very balanced diplomatic kind of a first meeting where you just, like, on a superficial level, you just got to know each other, and you just realize that okay, there could be something that could happen. But overall it indicates a very, like, sweet kind of a meeting. It's a because Libra is the original sign, that is the Mool Trikon Rashi of Venus. So it is very strong, it is very powerful in that house, in that sign. So it shows that there is not a lot of confrontation that would happen. Like, the first meeting would not be like, you would not be very straightforward, or you would not like ask very direct questions. So it will be very like a diplomatic and just getting to know each other kind of a meeting. But the setup in which you will meet, that setup itself can be quite aesthetic. Like, it will be very, the place, like even if it is a cafe, or it can be a place where there are a lot of people around. So the place will be very good, like it will be very beautiful in that sense. There could be a lot of flowers around. So all the Venetian like elements will be present in that place, or the place would smell really nice. So something like that would, you will see that will be very significant to the place. Coming to the next house, which is the eighth house. So suppose your Venus is placed in the eighth house, and or for example, if Venus is placed anywhere in the chart, but that planet, like the seventh lord from Venus, is getting very strongly connected with the eighth house. then we can expect, like you can say that the context situation in which you will meet will be the eighth house theme. So eighth house, as we know, firstly, it is a very sudden kind of a house. So first thing that we can see that you are meeting the person at a very in a very unplanned manner. It is not at all planned, and you accidentally met them. Something like that. It can show, or there is a lot like very less time duration in which maybe you spoke to the person once and you just immediately met them, or maybe you just randomly met them. So something like that can happen. Secondly, it shows that because second house is the house of family and eighth house is directly opposite to it, so it represents your in-laws' family, like spouse's family. So you can meet them in that context also. Like first time you met them at their spouse's family, like at their, at your in-laws' place. So something like that can also be seen. Or it can even indicate a place where there is a lot of darkness, like you met at a time where you met at a time, when it is actually like evening, or at night you met the person. It is not like in the daylight that you met the person, because eighth house is a very dark, secretive kind of a house. And it can even show that you meet the person at a place which is kind of connected with, it's near to like a, crematorium, or it's near to like a mortuary, that kind of a place. Like it might not be in that place, but it could be a place which is near to that place, because that is the kind of environment in which the eighth house kind of operates. And it can even indicate that the place where you will meet, there are not a lot of people around. It's a very secretive, very like low key kind of a place. Or even if it could be a cafe also, but a cafe where not a lot of people come, to visit. So it could show something like that also. Along with this, it can even indicate a place like an insurance office. In some context, it can show that, or a research lab, because we know that eighth house is very strongly connected with insurance, with research, and all these kind of things. Or it could even show a place where there is like a lot of mining that is done. So I'm telling you the places that could be near the place in which you meet. Like the environment could be like this, because like in the fourth house I mentioned that the place in which you meet, it could be near a pond, a water body, because fourth house is a sign of Cancer. It's a water sign, so it's connected with those elements. Similarly, eighth house is connected with these kind of elements, so that is a kind of theme in which you are meeting. Or you meet at a time where there was a death that happened in your family or in their family. So you met at a time when there was like a sudden event happened in the family itself, or a very sudden thing happened in your life, very, or an accident, a surgery, or something like that, which was a very transformative experience that happened in your life, and you met the person immediately after that. So it can show something like that also. But definitely the situation, the environment, if you see the Scorpio sign also, it's very secretive, it's very dark, hidden. So the meeting will also be kind of have themes of this theme. Like I mentioned in the previous sign of Libra, like a previous part of the seventh house, like Libra energy. So it is a very pleasant energy, and like there could be flowers, there could be some very beautiful things, like good smell coming, in that environment where you meet. But eighth house is very different. So you have to study the house, the environment in which it is operating. So in like in dark, mysterious kind of circumstances you are meeting, or in place in a very difficult circumstance, you are going through a very challenging period in your life, and through in that period you met this person. So something like that also can be expected to be seen. So coming to the next house, which is the ninth house. So if suppose your Venus is placed in the ninth house, or wherever your Venus is placed, the seventh lord from Venus is very strongly connected with the ninth house, and it's well placed. So we can definitely say that ninth house related themes will become very prominent in the first meeting with the spouse, and the context will be set by the ninth house. So it shows that ninth house firstly represents temples, universities, places where there is a lot of knowledge exchange that is happening. So you can definitely meet the person at a time where you were either traveling, like foreign traveling, in a flight, at a university, at an educational like place where there is a lot of intellectual people gathered and they are discussing something. So something like that. Or it could be a mandir, like a temple where you meet the person for the first time. But it shows that the context, the theme that is set in this meeting, it is a lot to do with your like your culture, your values, your roots. So that is the main foundation on which you will bond with the person in the first meeting. Like when the first meeting happens, you meet them. So you will feel, okay, that is something that we come from that same kind of a faith, we come from that same ideology, we have the same beliefs. So those are the kind of themes that you can expect in the first meeting also to come up. And it also indicates that ninth house is the house of gurus, your teachers, professors. So it could be that you meet the person through some professor, through your teacher, through your guru, or you meet them at a place where, or you meet them through a common faith, like you both believe in something, like it could be any kind of a, it could even be a cult, something like that also, or some political ideologies and all are matching. So some, you say some group is there, which is very strongly connected with that Sagittarius element. In that context, you are kind of meeting, or you gel well on those aspects. So something like that also can be seen. But definitely ninth house, as we know, it's a very positive, it's a very optimistic kind of a house. And the energy that is associated with that house is, it's a very uplifting energy. So in the first meeting itself, you will feel very positive with the person. You will feel like it's kind of moving in the right direction. There is growth that you can see, and you feel like the person is able to expand your horizon. So these are the kind of things you will feel also in the first meeting. Or it could even be that your father's involvement could be there in the meeting, or through your father, you meet this person. So father will be instrumental in that, because ninth house represents it's the house of father also. So broadly, these are the themes and the context, the place where you can meet. And but definitely, like I said in the previous parts, also the conjunction, of Venus with other planets, the sign in which it is placed will also give a different flavor to the meeting. But the basic theme, basic foundation will still be the same. So coming to the next house, which is the 10th house. So suppose your Venus is placed in the 10th house, or wherever Venus is placed in the chart, that seventh lord from Venus is strongly connected with the 10th house, and that planet is strong, then we can say that, okay, 10th house, you can definitely consider as the place of meeting the spouse. So 10th house, as we know, it's very commonly connected with the workplace, your professional setup. So that is the very first thing that comes to your mind, that you can meet in the same office, or you can meet through work. Okay, so like we saw in Virat Kohli's chart also, that his Venus is in the 10th house. So he met Anushka Sharma at, it was a work thing, that was happening over there. So it can definitely indicate that. Or it can even show that you meet the person at a time where you are burdened with a lot of work. So, you are very busy, struggling really hard in your career, in your job. And that is the time when, the person comes in your life. Or it could even be a time where there is a promotion, there is like a job shift, that is happening in your life, and you're changing, switching jobs. And that is the time around which you meet this person. So something like that can also be seen. But it definitely shows that the first meeting, like the context and like how you will feel and the vibe of the meeting, can be a bit cold. Like it might come across as very straightforward and maybe to the point, and maybe you're asking, or they are asking very formal, very direct questions to you. So it's not like a very fun kind of a meeting. So it can give that kind of a vibe. But it definitely shows that even if you don't meet the person in the office itself, but it can be like, even if it's a place outside, but it's a very formal, very professional kind of a place. The place itself will not have themes of enjoyment, of happiness, so some a very serious kind of a place it can indicate. So because you have to look at the house, you have to look at the sign. The original sign is in the it's a sign of Capricorn. So it's a very cold, dry kind of a sign, and does not represent very fun loving, optimistic, pleasure kind of a places. So that is a kind of vibe also that you will get. And it can even be like a office building, a simple office building can be also where you are not working, they are not working, but you meet at a place where, which is kind of like a very corporate or some government organization, or a place where it's connected with some professional stuff, very formal, serious stuff, where people are discussing very high level stuff. So that is the kind of environment, that is the kind of vibe that you will get with a person, with a meeting. And it can even indicate that you meet the person through your father's family, because it is the second from the ninth house. So it can even indicate something like that in certain cases. But mostly it definitely shows work-related themes would be quite prominent in the meeting. And with the 10th house, it can even show that maybe for a very long time you were trying to meet each other, but you could not. So the first meeting also might happen after a lot of delay. And because Saturn, theme is there with this house. So it can show like after a lot of struggle and, waiting, this meeting actually finally happened. So something like that also can be seen. So coming to the next house, which is the 11th house. So if suppose your Venus is placed in the 11th house or wherever Venus is situated in the chart, that Lord, like, seventh from Venus is very strongly connected with the 11th house and it's strong. So then you can consider the 11th house to be that place where you can, meet the person in the context in which you will meet. So 11th house, as we know, originally it is the sign of Aquarius that is ruling the 11th house, and it represents large groups, large organizations, and also your friends, your social circle, your network. So, and it even represents like these digital technology stuff and social media and all these things also come under that. So it can show like Facebook, for example. So it can show that you can meet the person through those kind of portals, like some digital online portals, or you meet them through some mutual friends, or like there is some, or it can be a friend also, like in your friend circle only you meet the person, or through some very large organizations like UNICEF, or like, organizations which are working globally, like they are connected to a cause. So something like that kind of a theme can also be there, very like high level NGOs who are doing a lot of good stuff. So maybe you met them through, through that route. But definitely it shows that the environment is such of the 11th house and Aquarius sign also, that it's basically groups, so it's not working in isolation. It has a lot of people. So you are meeting at a place either which has a lot of people, like you could meet at a conference, like these business conferences are there, or you can meet them at a place where it's even like a concert, like if you go to a concert these days, there are so many people. So basically it is showing crowd, it's not a place where you are like eighth house energy, Scorpio. It's a very mysterious, very siloed house. There are not a lot of people in that around you at that time. But 11th house is not a very siloed house in that sense. There are a lot of people. There could be a lot of people around you. And in some cases, it can even show some social gatherings, some events, networking events, or some weddings also it can show in some cases because of large number of people. So that is the context in which you will meet, and that is how you will meet. But definitely it shows that in some cases the meeting can also be very sudden, like it was very unplanned and you just did not decide, but you accidentally like met them. Because we have to see that Aquarius sign is also very strongly connected with sudden kind of events, because co-ruled planet is Rahu along with Saturn. Co-rule, it is being co-ruled by Rahu. So very sudden way in which you meet, and even Scorpio sign is very sudden in that sense. So those are the kind of situations in which you will meet, and in some cases you can even feel again because of the influence of Rahu on this house, that you just immediately like fell for each other, and there was an instant connection, there was an instant click that happened. So that is the kind of click that sometimes Rahu can give you. And but again, like I said in the previous parts also, if suppose Venus over here is conjunct a lot of planets, or the sign in which it is placed will also make a little bit of difference, and it will give a different flavor to the meeting itself. But you will see that the major way in which you meet would still be the same. So that is about the 11th house. Coming to the last house, which is the 12th house. So suppose you have Venus placed in the 12th house, or wherever Venus is placed in the chart. So seventh lord from Venus is connected with the 12th house and it is becoming strong in the 12th house. Then we can definitely say that, okay, 12th house related themes, or like, that is the way in which you will meet, that is environment. So 12th house, again, as we know, it's a very isolated kind of a house, and it does not involve a lot of people. It represents foreign places like hospitals, jails, and all these mental asylums. So firstly, you can meet, like there is a very high chance you can meet the person at a hospital. You can meet them in a foreign country. You can meet them at a place which is connected with water, like near a water body, or like a, sea or an ocean. So that could also be there. It can even be a jail or a mental asylum for some cases, or some spiritual retreat places, like, place where you just go for yoga and you go. and you are connected to like the same spiritual organization. So something like that also can be seen with this. But definitely, I see that the way in which you connect with each other and the theme of the first meeting, it's very much based on like that instant connect again, like because Venus is exalted in this house, you know. So it's a very pure, unconditional, selfless kind of a devotion. So there is a lot of those themes that come in the relationship itself, in the first meeting itself. So there is not a lot of judgment that is coming. You know, you are not judging really the other person. You are very patient with them. You're carefully listening, and it's a very slow paced kind of a house. You know, that it's not a very chaotic house. And even the sign of Pisces, as we know, it's a very calm, very like composed, peaceful kind of a sign. So the meeting itself can involve themes of those kind of things, and it shows that there is not a lot of rush. So when you meet the person, you will not be in a rush ki, oh, I need to go back, or you know, in a very hurried manner you met the person. So it's a very calm, composed kind of a meeting. And it also indicates that because Venus is exalted here, so it is the highest devotion that Venus can feel. It is in this house. So the relationship itself, like, and Jupiter element is also involved because Jupiter rules this house. So it shows that the element of the relationship, also of the meeting itself, it's based on a lot of trust. It is based on a lot of faith that you have on the other person, and good things kind of, you know, you are starting the meeting, you have good things in mind, you know, with which you start. It's not that already you had certain assumptions made about the person and then you are analyzing whether those assumptions are met or not. So it's a good kind of way to start. But definitely the theme, like the places that are represented by this house, are kind of in a way isolated. They are not. They could be even somewhere, you know, in a nature, like in a park, you know, or a place where there's a lot of natural elements around. So that is the kind of place where you meet. So in certain cases, it can even indicate that. But definitely, it shows that you know, when you meet the person and when you say that what was it that kind of clicked or that kind of connected to you, so you will definitely say that there was some soul connect that I felt with the person. There was this ease, comfort that naturally came, and as if, you know, that we are syncing together in the same harmonious manner. So that is the kind of energy that you kind of feel with this house. So that was, you know, about it, about this video and the place, context, the theme in which you will meet. So I hope that this video has given you far better clarity compared to the first one. So I've tried explaining with example charts also in this. And if you have any, you know, issues, any comments, like anything you want to ask, so you can ask them in the comment section below. And see you all the next time. And thank you so much for watching.